Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the Keith Andrew Network, the one and only Keith Andrew Network. Today we have Sacha Kaluri on the show. It's a real honor and privilege having me as a guest. I just want to say thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you.
The honor's all mine. For people who want to know what my talk show is about, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them
I love that
labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. To prove to them it's them out something. So hashtag break the labels. With that being said, normal conversation, and let's get started.
Thank you. I love this. I think it's great purpose out there.
No, absolutely. Now, for people who want to know, actually, I did that, right? So the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to do what you do now.
Oh, okay. So my job is I'm a youth motivation. Well, I'm a motivational speaker, predominantly working with young people across Australia, New Zealand, and America. And I'm also a radio host, and I'm an author of a book as well that's called The Two Worlds of Your Teenager. And it's all about helping teenagers navigate themselves through once they start partying, and also how to get their career on track. So I speak to young people predominantly about self-development, self-awareness, and how to find the career of their dreams, all about, how they connect with themselves so that they can live their best life.
Oh, absolutely. You are from Australia, so the first question I want to ask you is reaching your audience. Is reaching your audience the same thing global-wise, or is it because we're in different territories and different places on the earth that how would you describe reaching your audience? Is it the same like how I'm reaching my audience in the US? Are you only reaching your audience in Australia? Is it all the same thing? How would you describe that?
So we reach our audience exactly the same way that you would do that in the US. So how we would do that is probably target, firstly, because we get to be in front of young people and in front of people when I do my speaking gigs, whether it's in front of young people. So probably 60 to 7% of my talks are in front of young people, and the other 30% is with adults. So a lot of the time my audience have probably met me at some stage before. And then, we put it out there and we do a whole lot of marketing, a whole lot of advertising, not so much, target advertising, but we do market ourselves to get out there. And that's how our audience finds us.
No, and you hit the hammer on the head, but you hit the nail on the head. The best way to get yourself out there is to stand in front of someone, because having that in-person presence means so much. I mean, yeah, we can do stuff online and everything, but having that actual presence of being seen in person, being felt, like the energy, that means so much. Online it's kind of like, okay, it's just a video and whatever, but being in a crowd of people, you can feel the intensity and energy saying, this is what it's like, to have a spotlight, pretty much on you, instead of being behind the screen, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, do you know what's really interesting is that I would definitely have agreed with that pre-COVID, but now it's actually quite interesting how we've been able to develop real relationships online with people. And, not talking romantic relationship, but real business relationships and friendships with people that you don't necessarily get to see, or you've had that working relationship where, I've entered into business deals over the last 12 months, and have been working with people that I've actually never physically met, but I feel like they're my friends and I feel like we're, really connected. And I would never have said that a year ago. So it's almost like the ability to connect with someone is resilient at all costs, because even though previously we would have said, I need to connect with them face to face, now that we physically can't do that, we're almost like that flower that grows through the crack on the pavement, because we go, wow, I need to actually be able to do that. And then we establish great relationships just like this online on Zoom without even, and it doesn't feel like we haven't met. It actually feels like we have met. That's how I feel like some of my really great relationships that I've established over the last year, that I would have probably met them online, but now I'm meeting them on here. What do you think?
No, I agree with you 100%. For an example, one reason I like doing video is because I actually get to see who I'm talking to. When I first started my talk show, don't ask me why, I seemed like a good idea at the time. I did 72 phone interviews. And personally, I hate talking on the phone because it's like talking to myself. Because it's like, yeah, okay. But then you're like looking around the room and I'm like, this is stupid. It is not stimulated. But when you do a video meeting, you're actually seeing who you're talking to. So you're actually building a connection that say, oh yeah, I do a podcast and we don't see anyone and it's just audio. So you can see the difference from, well, let me ask you, do you agree or disagree that do you see a difference? Say, for an example, if we were doing a phone interview versus a video interview, do you think one carries over to an audience and it will get them interactive and just saying, it's just plain audio?
Yeah, look, I think that there's a place for both. Like, both are very impacting. And some people sometimes, like I drive a lot, so the podcasts are really important to me. And I can't do it with video. So I can actually almost, like, my imagination, it's almost like reading a book. My imagination takes me off into a world where I imagine what that person would look like. I imagine this, that, all of those kind of things. And that's equally as powerful. So on the phone, that does that as well. But then once you get video, then there's almost this side of connection. I mean, the things that I've done online over the last year have been like things that I would never have even suspected, or my kids have done online that I would never have suspected. Like I've done therapy sessions online. I've done, kinesiology sessions. I've had like a tarot reading online. My kids have done online discos and, had all their like school functions that they would normally have done, face to face. I would have laughed at you and said, there's absolutely no way that my kids are going to take a computer into their room and, the school's going to put a DJ online and everyone's going to put a screen on. They're all going to be dancing in their own room. And that's going to be their end of year school breakup. Like, I would have said to you, there's no way my kids are doing. And my kids loved it. Like, they literally just went, right, my room, leave me in my room. They turned off the lights. We put like some, strobe lights on in the background and created like this little disco in it. And effectively they were in their own room dancing by themselves and watching other kids in their own rooms. So, and I would have literally, I would have thought to myself, there's no way kids would do that. But we're defying the odds as far as what we can do, because we're so needing it. We're so needing that glitter and spark in our life to make us feel like we're slightly normal, that if someone says, go into your room and dance by yourself for an hour and film yourself so other people can see you, you go, okay. Whereas a year ago, people would have gone, I'm not doing that. I'm definitely not doing that. Whereas now it's normal.
Well, that's why people say, we're entering a new phase of normalcy. And I always talk to my father about this and how I always say I want things to go back to normal. Unfortunately, things are not going to go back to normal. People are now shopping online, schools are online, everything is online. So eventually, there's no reason to go out. And that hurts, if you're trying to go on a date, or if you're trying to interact with people, yes, you always see them on a computer screen, but you want to feel that chemistry, you want to feel that interaction. It's nice to get the hell out of the house. Who wants to live the rest of their lives in the house?
No, exactly right.
But you mentioned about the radio, about some people don't have time to listen to a podcast video wise. On podcast on speaker.com, that's a perfect plug for them. Speaker.com, they have a lot of great podcasts. I actually thought about turning my episodes into audio, but there's some things I say in the interview where it says, okay, we can see that cat behind you, or that's really cool. That there's a time where I was sitting with my dog, and they're like, oh, but this is Fifi, you talk about the dog, but you're listening to the audio. It's, what the hell is he talking about? I can't see a dog that he's holding. What is he talking about? What cat? So if you keep it like straightforward, normal conversation, and you don't talk about the elephant in the room that you can't see what you're doing, then yes, I love, like you said, when I travel, go to the city, listen to the radio. It's depends on what you're doing. Now that everyone's in the house, they're quarantined, it's great to be interactive. But if you're traveling, listen to the radio or podcast. As you said, it depends on what you're doing, but both of them are really great.
Yeah. And the power of the imagination. So if you say, oh, there's a cat in the background, I might imagine a ginger cat, but the actual reality is it's a black cat. But it doesn't matter. It's the power of how we describe it. And I guess it goes back to that human element. We all love a good story, which is why we listen to these things, because we love to hear other people's perspectives. We love to hear the other human element of it. And what's going on in your life? What's the adventure, or what's the tragedy, or what have you learned that I can then take a piece away from that? And that's ultimately what we are as humans, which is why we have connected this way, which is why we're going out of our way to just keep doing these things, because we desperately want to connect with each other. So we'll find it at any cost.
No, I agree. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back on that, it's about social media and working with people with disabilities when we come back.
Hi, it's Mimi Chen.
Hi, my name is Ellen George.
It's Shauna Toth.
Hey guys, I'm Anastasia Edwards.
Hi, this is Jackie Nunez.
Hi, I'm Amelia Rose Fair. I'm
Hey guys, I'm Alexandria Denise, and you're watching Keith Andrew's show. He's doing a terrific job. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesomeness.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching the Keith Andrew Network. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube today. When you get notified of brand new episodes and contacts, make sure to like and subscribe to the Keith Andrew Network on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all social medias. Now, the last two questions I want to ask you about is, have you worked with people with disabilities, besides me, obviously, and are you willing to work with people with disabilities?
Yeah, well, look, I have worked with them for a really long time. I was working on a program that was really designed for respite for parents, and specifically for parents, because, having a child with a disability can actually be extremely hard work on parents and very, very testing. And so we would actually create respite for parents, but then insight would be that we would take young people with disabilities out every weekend. And I did that for probably about 7 or 8 years, running that and working with kids of all different disabilities. And I loved that, loved it to a core, because it's an extremely hard job. And there's almost like a shelf life on it, because you need to be at that level of motivation and care, of precision at all times, and you can't get tired, because if you get tired, then what can actually happen is that you're not able to deliver the level of care that is actually required. And so I'm very big on people saying, once you get tired, you need to get out, because this is a human being and you need to give them that perfection of that level that they need on all times, because this is that level where they're getting their break. One thing that I have learned is that a lot of times, and maybe it's different cultures. I mean, I'm Italian, so predominantly European cultures get in, especially in Australia, is that they feel like they would be the best carer for their young person or their child, but they're not understanding is that just like any other, just with anything, like especially when a child, and then you get to a teenager, that teenager wants to break away and discover their own life, and just like any other teenager. So I think that I learned that when a young person that has a disability equally wants to experience those teenage years and equally wants to break away. So it's really important to be able to give them that time away from their parents and their family, just as any other teenager would do.
No, I agree with you 100%.
And often families don't understand that, because they feel like I need to be with them all the time and I need to protect them. But they equally just want to go, hey, I need a break from you as much as you need a break from me, which is no different to any other family, because, I've been with my children every day since March, homeschooling them. I need a break from them, and they go back to school tomorrow, and I need a break. Like, our schools are opening tomorrow. I'm excited for them to go back to school, because we've been at home for almost a year, or, 10, 11 months. We've been at home for such a long time with each other.
Well, you actually bring up a good subject, but I want to ask you about here in the U.S., in the city anyway, in New York City, having a brain fart, Cuomo decided to reopen everything. And a couple of months ago, it's funny, I actually had this conversation. You look at New Jersey, Florida, Texas, all these states reopen, and all the corona cases numbers skyrocket. So, and I actually asked some people in Australia about this, but it's better to say, you know what, stay home, be patient. If you want to, I'm not encouraging drinking or anything, but, just don't take things so personally. It's just right now, the shit's hitting the fan, but after a year, once things go back to normal, people are saying, you know what, this is actually an opportunity for me to sit back and enjoy and do everything I always wanted to do, because once things go back to normal, you're not going to get that chance. But the thing I wanted to tell you is, wait for there's a vaccine. Once you get a vaccine, things will fall into place. Of course, you got to get the naysayers and say, oh, we don't want the vaccine or anything. But one, you can't fix stupid. But it's like one of those things where you think about is, you mentioned your kids are going back to school tomorrow. Is that really I'm not saying, is that really the best move? Because I know where I am, the schools are open, but it's kind of like you want to cut down on the risk of, if you're not sick now, you don't want to play devil's advocate, say, okay, let's go to school and God forbid to bring back something, and it is what it is.
Well, see, Keith, I guess we're a little bit different to the rest of the world in Australia. We're an island. And so immediately our island shut down. So we can't get in and we can't get out. So we've not had what other countries have done. Like, we've been able to shut our borders. And when we shut our borders, you can't just, come across the border. We're in the middle of nowhere. So we've got we're at 0 cases right now. In our state, we're at 0 cases. So we've been able, it's taken a long time for us to get like this. But there's no reason for us not to be able to get back to some sort of normal life right now, because we're not letting anybody into our country and we're not able to get out. So I can't come to you. No matter what I do, I can't come, and you can't come to me. Like there's some really, unless you're an Australian citizen stuck somewhere else in the world, that you can actually, and then you need to quarantine. So, and there's a hefty cost to be able to do that. So anyone entering our country, so for example, if you're an Australian citizen and you're in America, we can't deny you coming home. So you need to, in order to come back here, you need to quarantine for 2 weeks, but it's at a cost of $3,000 to yourself.
No, it's really
to be able to do that, So our government has done completely different things, which I think at the time was very, very difficult on us, and we had the harshest restrictions the whole world has had. Which is, especially my state, had the harshest restrictions that anywhere else in the world had, that are now starting to, other countries or other places are now starting to take on our restrictions. I mean, we were the first country to do a lockdown as far as, give a time frame. Like, we were not allowed out of our house past 8 o'clock. We weren't allowed kids weren't allowed allowed out of our houses. We were only one person from the family was allowed to go shopping, food shopping. You couldn't have two people. There were really hefty fines. Nobody was allowed to, you were only allowed outside of the house to exercise with only people from your own home for up to an hour. So I wasn't allowed to exercise with somebody else from any other homes. So I would, like my husband, myself, and my children were only allowed to exercise together outside. So we were the first country to be able to do that. And so I guess that's why our numbers have gotten down so low. And everybody else was like, wow, and it was really, really harsh. It was really harsh. And so I guess that one of the things is our mental health is something that we're now dealing with. And I could absolutely say that there's a whole lot of PTSD that we now need to deal with. And isolation promotes isolation. So even though now we're allowed out much more, I mean, there's still still a whole lot of restrictions, and our borders are now starting to open up between states. So we've not even been able to travel. So in America, you've been able to travel within states, whereas we've not been able to do that. And that's only now that I think yesterday, as of today, 12:59, our borders, some of our states are starting to open up to other borders. But there's been harsh restrictions on that. So, but the other thing is that our government, as always, has made some silly mistakes. And that's probably what's hurt our people the most, is that some of the reasons this virus is spread is not so much because of the fault of the people, but it's actually the fault of the government, because the government's done some really silly things. They've made some poor decisions. And so a lot of our quarantine was actually caused by that, not necessarily by the people. We don't have a big population. I think that we've only got a population of 23 million throughout our whole country. So you've got that probably in Manhattan on a busy day.
No, I agree.
So it's very, very different for us.
No, I agree with you. I'm not like a Trump supporter or anything, but he made a lot of stupid mistakes, like throwing out the vaccines and when them expire, saying no when they could have bought more of them. But there are restrictions, like you were saying, but there are restrictions where, I'm in New York, but I can't travel to New Jersey. New Jersey can't travel. I mean, you can't stop people. People are going to do that regardless. But it's better to contain what you have and just wait. All you can do is actually just wait, till the vaccine comes out. Once you're vaccinated, you can do whatever the hell you want.
I think that Australians are very compliant. So we aren't allowed to go across borders. Like we're just not allowed to. And there's police at every border stop. So you can't get across. And there's been people that have had, loved ones that have passed away and, sometimes not being able to go across borders for those particular reasons,
No,
which has been harsh.
I agree with you. My friend passed away, and I did want to go pay my respects, but it was the quarantine. Only 4 or 5 people were allowed to go, and it's a sucky time now, but we're all hoping for the best going forward. But wrapping up our talk, so I do have a couple questions for you off the air. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your honest first opinion? What made you say yes? And after being a guest, how do you feel now?
First opinion was I'm up. Look, I get to be a guest on lots of different podcasts, so I'm up for it. And you were an interesting person, and so I thought, yep, no problem, I'm up for it. And it's really been great to get to know you, and I really see your passion in what you're doing and your purpose in what you're spreading to everybody, and your community, and also the promotion of making people believe that anyone that has any kind of disability can actually do anything that they want. So I love your cause, Keith. I love it.
No,
and thank you for having me.
No, I really appreciate that. Now, wrapping up, people can follow the Keith Andrew Network on all social medias, but our main focus right now is YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell icon, and support the Keith Andrew Network.